Thursday night, 7 p.m. Circling the train. It's time for ThoughtFLOW. So excited to be here tonight because there's so much to talk about. Hi, Tammy. Hi, Doug. Hi, Brian. Oh, you guys are waiting for us tonight. Woohoo! I love it. Hi, Brian. How are you feeling today, Brian? Hi, Tanya. Oh my gosh, Tanya. So Tanya, Vino dancer, was one of my college roommates. Probably my most fun college roommate. That I actually lived with. That was like not insane and did not burn my clothes or anything weird like that. Different story. Thank you, Sissy. Thank you. Everybody give Brian props. He's feeling better. He was a little under the weather. We're so glad that he's on the upswing. Of course you're at work, because why would you stay home? I mean, I'm staying home. That's all right. Nikki is logging in right now. We've got much to talk about. Hello, lovely.
Hello.
Oh, were you biking today? You look mighty fresh.
Yes, just a little one. Just a little one. Ryan and I went on a little bike ride because he can ride his bike to school. So we were exploring the ways. And, you know, we live in suburbia. So, like, a lot of the turns, they look the same. And so, hello. So we just went on a bike ride just so he could see, you know, how to ride his bike to school.
So we live in suburbia too, but not like the Pleasantville suburbia where there are sidewalks. If you ride your bike to school here in this suburb, you're going to die. So I appreciate any suburban area that was created using civic planning, because I think you should be able to ride your bike anywhere and not just to your own gravesite. So that's my take on it. But that's awesome.
There are some incorporated spots where there are no sidewalks, and you're just like, ooh, wow, right at your own risk. And the one kind of heavier traffic, I use the term loosely, it's one lane of traffic each way, but it is like a kind of a busier thoroughfare. The school puts a crossing guard there.
Harmony. Especially with Misty. All right, so I'm going to tell you about what happened yesterday driving, and then you're going to respect my driving, people. So, Mom and I were on our way back from the city, and I'm on the parkway, and, you know, people laugh at me when I drive because I'm like a full-on periscope. I'm seeing it all. So, about 2 cars up in front of me, I see some shenanigans. We're about, I like to leave ample car lengths. So 2 cars ahead, but probably about 6 car lengths. And I'm watching this person on the right, and he just pulls right into the guy on the left, and realized I was probably going about 87. So we're flying. I mean, there were cars in front of me. I had to slow down. So anyway, guy that got hit, his bumper flies off. Now realize, well, I'll get to that in a minute. Bumper flies off, splits into a million pieces. In my mind, I am Maverick, Mom is Goose, and I gotta slam on the air brakes so I can fly right by, man. I'm like, going around. There's shit flying everywhere from this car. The guy that hit the guy never stopped. Kept going. I was so disgusted and horrified at humanity. I was just furious. So I hop out, and I'm talking to the dude that got hit, who's like this, hands shaking. You know, it's terrible.
Right.
Listen, I'm going to give you my phone number. If the coppers actually show up, which they probably won't because the other driver's not here, but if the coppers actually show up, give them my number. I am super happy to tell them what I saw. I was directly 2 cars behind you. He gives me the paper. Well, I go up to his car so he can give me the paper so I can write my number down. He just bought this car.
Aww.
And it was a Jeep Grand Cherokee. So
Aww.
It wasn't cheap. Poor critter. But yeah, it just made me really pissed because I feel like, if you're going to be a careless driver, at least own your bullshit and pull over. I saw him continue going on, and I was like, he's not going to pull over, Mom. Should I chase him? I really did want to chase him, actually. But I didn't. I was like, you know what? No, I need to see this guy because I feel like he's probably really upset. But, yes, it does sound like Florida. And listen, Florida is like Space Invaders. Remember the video game Space Invaders? Like, that's what driving in Florida is like. Yeah. They're all
Pew,
over the
pew.
road.
Oh, that was the original. Pew, pew.
It's
pew,
more like
pew.
Galaga, actually, where the cars are spinning around and you're shooting them. That's what driving in Florida is like. It's complete mayhem. But yeah, I was like, what kind of person? And knows there's witnesses, right? You had to know there were witnesses.
Did you get his plates?
Couldn't. I was too far away. And he said, well, the guy that I pulled over to talk to, he said, it was a gold Buick. I said, yeah, I saw that, but the coppers are probably going to want more than that. And listen, we know the highways, we know there's cameras everywhere. Listen, but know they're not going to be able to find this information because that's like too much work.
Right.
Sucks. So then I hated humanity for a minute, and then I was fine. But all day my mom was like, I just can't, what kind of person does that?
Well, all of the people now who have been given the freedom to let their freak flags fly. And that's the thing, right? This is probably someone who saw what happened at the Capitol on the 6th and was like, all I did was sideswipe a guy.
Now, are you making that assumption because they were driving a Buick?
No, I'm just saying that is what people do. It's like, how does this work for me? What is my best way? I mean, obviously he knows he struck another vehicle. He knows this. And he will most likely be, you see people who drive around and they have not like a full-on jalopy, but they have like damage to their car, and you're
like
just
a
like,
hoopty.
No, not even a hoopty. It'll be like a nicer car, and you're just like, get that fixed. Like, don't you want to get that fixed? I mean, just for the aesthetic alone, right? You didn't buy the car with the dent unless you bought the car with the dent. But some people, they didn't buy the car with the dent. You're just like, can you get that fixed? Can you just take that in and get that fixed? And I'm not talking about people who are waiting for the insurance claim and waiting for, I got T-boned once. Hey, Nugget, turn that light on for me, please. The first one. Yes, baby. Thank you. Yes. So, I got T-boned once in my Honda Civic, and my Honda Civic holds my heart because my mommy bought it. It was stick shift, and I just love my little Honda Civic. Well, I'm driving down a side street, and this guy T-bones me out of an alley. And when the cops get there, he says that I hit him.
Magical thinking.
And he said it with such earnest sincerity that I was like, oh.
Was he like, these are not the joys I'm looking for? I did not know this woman.
I was like, maybe I'm wrong. Like, am I being glamour? Like, is he a vampire? But it's daylight.
Bill Cauthen hit you.
So the cop, it couldn't have been any other way. Like, the right side of my bumper was hanging off. And he was still in the thoroughfare of the alley. And I was still in the traffic lane of the side street. And so the cop looks at me and I said, well, I drove by and he hit me. And he said, you mean coming out of the alley where he is right now? And I said, yes, that, yes. Yes, we didn't move our cars. Yes. And he was mad at me because he hit me. And the only thing that I could think of, because this is a neighborhood in Chicago that is Lakeview. And Lakeview has a lot of walkers. It's really like tons of apartment buildings, only street parking for the most part. You know, one of those neighborhoods where if you don't get there before 4:50, you're not going to get a parking spot. And so the thing that I thought of was, I'm so glad no one was walking.
Right. Right.
Because he didn't, you know, I mean, it's an alley. It's an alley off of a side street. So you come out of the alley, which means you have to cross the sidewalk. And he hit me. So there were actually two parked cars, one on either side of the alley. And so he just didn't stop.
Right.
He didn't stop to look to see if there was a car coming. He literally barreled right into me, so much to the point where my butt of my car, it's a Honda Civic, they're light. But people do that. People get caught up into their things and they don't feel like because they didn't mean to do it or that wasn't their plan. I'm not even going to say because they didn't mean to do it. That didn't factor into their plan, so they keep going.
Well, I didn't mean to be 5'4", but alas, I am 5'4". You know what? And that means I have to, you know, there are some important responsibilities that happen when you're only 5'4". For example, altering your pants. They're going to be too long unless you've got spider legs, so you've got to alter your pants. Like, there are things that we do and things that are done to us, but either way,
Correct.
you have to participate and be responsible, which is exactly what we're talking about tonight, right? Tonight's topic, everybody. I mean, everybody's got to have an opinion about Cuomo.
Wait, before we jump into that, can I just say, I you know, you guys know I'm horrible with names.
Oh no.
The black woman who is getting her free underwear at the Vicky Secrets
Mm-hmm.
and that woman show
in Robin's neighborhood. Well, I mean, in that area.
Right.
Yeah.
So I watched the whole video like a couple weeks ago. Like I watched the whole video because I hadn't seen it when we did the show, and I watched the whole video, and I every time that I thought I couldn't be more flabbergasted and more mortified, like someone else just did something stupid that was, so I'm like, this poor woman, and the manager did not act like a manager. The manager did not rein in that situation at all. And there were so many things, and the woman kept saying, I'm going to keep recording because this is, you know, like she was laughing, but it wasn't like she was laughing because the situation was so incredulous, and she was by herself in a store full of people. She was by herself. People continued to check out. People continued to kind of glance over their shoulder. Not one person stood up. And it wasn't, what this white woman did was so in your face, charging towards her, not walking and saying, oh my gosh, I'm really sorry, I'm having a bad day, can you please stop the video? She was charging towards this woman.
I mean, why would she say that? She wasn't sorry.
This woman was ducking down under. Another woman came in and looked at her and said, why don't you just stop filming? Completely consoling this white woman who was instigating. And the other woman turned and looked at her with disdain, as if she didn't have a right to videotape the threat that was continuous, was obvious and continuous.
Because she didn't see it as a threat.
She didn't see it as a threat. And then when the mall cops came, their inability to choose to understand the circumstance, and I'm like, wow, she's being very clear. And then when the cops came, and no one came to this woman's rescue. Not one person said, I saw what happened. I think the manager said it at one point.
Right.
But it didn't need to go that far. There were so many times where it could have been stopped. There were so many times where it could have been stopped.
Right.
And it didn't escalate because of her. It escalated because this woman who called the cops and the cops came to her rescue, um, because people get to do what they want to do and then people don't stop. You made a choice. Well, this guy is probably shaken. I'm going to stop and talk to this guy. But then the question is, who else got this guy's plates and took action? Because you weren't the only one who saw it.
No, I wasn't. Like I said, I was 2 cars back. There was a car in front of me who did a real shit job of swerving, by the way. Hi, Coach Robin. And could have caused an accident in himself. Not to say that, you could blame him because that bumper was flying through the air. But
Right.
to be honest, if he would have done his shit job of swerving and then I would have hit him, it would have been my fault. So
yeah, we have that in Illinois. You rear end someone. Yeah.
Maverick. I'm so glad I am such a fighter jet movie aficionado.
Show me the way home, honey.
Not that part. I was like, get rid of all this sentimental stuff. I want to see more jets. I want to see more engines. I want to see dog fights, and I want to see more Val Kilmer without a shirt. Anyway.
Oh yeah, old Val Kilmer without a shirt. Old Val Kilmer.
Oh,
new Val Kilmer.
Well, he's had a moment.
That's not a judgment. I'm not body shaming him. I'm not body shaming him. Y'all don't even look at me like I'm body shaming him. But I know I will get Val Kilmer body shaming messages. But Top Gun Val Kilmer.
Oh, real genius Val Kilmer. Anyway, we digress.
Real genius Val Kilmer. Oh yeah.
I loved him. Oh my God. I would watch that movie and swoon for hours. Like, I would wait, because, back in the day, in the 80s, when a movie came on HBO was committed. They played that movie 3 times a day, at least, all day long, for a month. So I was committed every so many months when it came back in the cycle. But point of the story, responsibility, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and there's so many ways that this is a big deal, is these pieces of, where is it your responsibility as a bystander or an employee or a co-conspirator, whatever it is? What is your impetus or your motivation for getting out there and lending a helping hand or running away? Like, what? I don't understand why people choose it, in the situation with that lunatic in the mall, like what you were just talking about. I don't understand why people thought that it was okay to at least to not at least say to the woman who was recording, or stand next to the woman who was recording, or
right.
You don't have to get in somebody's face. You don't need to break brass knuckles. But what you do have to do is show some solidarity so that person doesn't feel like they're alone. You can't necessarily count on the coppers to come and do the right thing. And in fact, it took them, 15 minutes to show up? What the hell was happening at that mall that it took them 15 minutes? 15 minutes. There's only 2 people in malls right now. So where were they? And just like this situation with the air rage. Did you see this one, Nikki?
I did.
Yes, where the dude was duct taped, or it was even packing tape, wasn't even duct tape, to the chair. And then the flight attendants were busted, initially roughly and without pay, because the passengers helped them and therefore went against protocol. What were they to do in that situation? I think the passengers helping out is exactly what should be happening.
And we're not talking about a stroll down the street. We're not talking about being in a car or on a bus. We are talking about being on a plane.
A very small enclosed area where if things go wrong, you get sucked out.
We're talking about being on a plane. And there are rules on the plane for a reason. For a reason. And I think that people actually need to go back, and if this is a sore subject for anyone, I don't mean for it to be, but a lot of things happened on 9/11. And as most people, I'm assuming, we all remember where we were. And when I read the story about the plane heading towards the Pentagon and what those passengers did and the choice that they made
No,
collectively,
the outcome.
collectively, they made that choice. And they made that choice for the greater good. And I think people need to go back and read that. And the people who were calling their loved ones, oh, breaking the rules. But I wonder if I would have the chutzpah to be a part of something like that. I'd like to think that I would be. But at the end of the day, they made a choice for death. And
For life.
but they made a choice, yes, but they made a choice to bring that plane down because there was something greater. There was a larger group that could be saved.
And standing.
Oh, wait, are we talking about vaccines? Oh, wait, no, we're not. I digress. I'm sorry, my bad.
No. No.
But they made a choice collectively for the larger group.
Which is kind of what I say, kind of lightly. When I think about, and two things here, when I think about the Cuomo situation, I mean, so many things about it. Just what I mean, that when I start staring around like this, I've got big thoughts.
It's just gross. It's gross.
My speech here. I really am. It's gross, but one of the grossest things about it to me, one of the grossest things about it, is that his right hand is a woman. You can't make me believe for 12.4 seconds that she didn't know what was going on, that she didn't know that it was wrong. And, maybe I'm not going to say it. But at the end of the day, again, this is a place where a person could have had a really big impact.
Yep.
And chose not to.
Correct.
Having been in a work environment where I was sexually harassed almost to the point of suicide, and I don't say that lightly. And I'm a strong character and that was like early Misty days when I was a complete strong character to the point of asshole. But I could not navigate myself through this situation. Anywhere I turned, I was pinned in. There was such a huge disparity in terms of power. The power that this man had over my career at that time was huge. And what he did was, hi Jenna, what he did was he poisoned everybody around me against me before I even realized it was happening. And so by the time I saw what it was and figured it out, he flat out told me, you're done. You make a peep, you do anything, you are done. That is the way this was handled. I ended up quitting this job to save my life. And I felt so badly for quitting. But at the same time, there was no solidarity. And I even tried to talk to one of the girls about it, and she was just not having it. And it was a sales job, They said women couldn't cut that anyway.
Well, and it's more than that because you're a Black woman. And so there are so many things that go with being in a vulnerable, volatile, harassing situation as a Black woman, because of course, oh my gosh, Misty, those palms are gorgeous. Oh, we're doing a little plant removal. Okay. So mine are little baby palms. They're still, so
they'll get there.
They'll get there. So, but there's so many things that you have to, because, so we have this thing where, as Black people in general, but especially as Black women, the decisions and the choices that you make in certain circumstances, you have to think of who else down the road is going to be affected. Not just as a woman, but you have to think about how long will it take before another Black person sits in this position? Am I, if by speaking up for myself to protect myself, am I in a position that could be detrimental for someone else if I don't navigate this in the right way, which is, what is the right way when you're being sexually harassed by a superior? I mean, it's like, you know, there's so many just wrong things with that, right? And the lack of camaraderie and the lack of all of that is, there are people like that, right? And I understand that being a terrifying situation, but now you have people who are doing what they want to do, like sideswiping cars. They are doing what they want to do, but then you have people who are moving further and further back and away, who are afraid to say something or don't want to be involved. And so you're creating this divide where people become very passive. And the people who are running roughshod around everyone, like life is a big Mario Kart game,
right,
they keep getting more and more emboldened.
Well, and let's compound that. You know, we talked about this a few weeks ago. You know, if you see something, maybe it was last week, if you see something, say something. But in our current culture, if you see something and you say something and you actually misperceived it, the cost, the price,
correct,
could be very, very great. You know, I don't think, I generally don't think cancel culture is a thing. I think it's nonsense. But I do think that when applied incorrectly, it is extremely harmful. And the fact is, you know, what we see now, things happening, people are weaponizing it to create mayhem and mischief in some cases where things aren't really happening at all. So there's a lot of issues here.
Okay, so then, let me just insert a dart right here. Matt Damon and his having to be told by his daughter that the use of the word FAGGOT is wrong. And that it took his, what I'm assuming is a teenager, it took his teenage daughter getting up and walking away from him, from the table, for him to realize that he shouldn't be using that word.
It doesn't surprise me.
And I'm like, do you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly.
Did you see that? And I was like,
and because people are bashing him, but I think the guy got famous young. He got big and famous young, and people don't question people like that. He can use any words and terms he wants, and it doesn't matter.
But then at some point, because there are some, you know, okay, look, like him or don't, I like him as an actor. I think Good Will Hunting is brilliant. The writing of that movie it's a really good movie.
Very well done. I just can't
say
or the who.
Right, okay. But the movie is a really good movie. And so you go, okay, you have some gray matter because you wrote that movie. You have some. But you're telling me that it takes you 20 something years and kids to realize in this day and age that that's a slur.
That's and look at what Jenna said. And then on top of it, you know, he bragged. It took age treaties from his daughter to stop it. But at the same time, how long did it take someone to call out Chrissy Teigen? Yeah. I mean, this is what I'm saying. There are mirrors in Hollywood, but they're like gently frosted.
With the GE soft white light.
That's That's it. Exactly. They're not using the LEDs that you and I are, the ring light. Look at all that. But that's exactly what I mean. And the thing about it is, did he have to put it out there like that? I don't think he did, obviously. Do I think he was looking for attention? I don't know. I don't really care. But my hope is that some ding-dong who is going to argue with somebody about the use of that term. I don't remember who I was talking to the other day, but they said, in their father's time or something like that, it meant something else. The word meant something else. Well, sure it did. No, it was something like a bag of sticks or something.
This is not the UK, and it is not a cigarette.
Well, that's pinching one. Yeah, that's different.
This is not the UK, people.
Oh, no, I'm
so
Sissy, yeah. They've 100% encountered gay people. The issue is they haven't had to worry about what they said to them.
And I would say that at the time that he was a rising star,
and in Boston,
there were
Boston.
People were hiding. Gay people were hiding. They were starting to come out, but they were being cast like, okay, I can't remember the first Kevin Spacey movie that what's that movie where he's laying on the roses and Mira Savina's in it? Yeah. I watched that movie and I was like, wow, he's kind of gay. And didn't even think anything of it. I was just like, I might need a little bit more man in my man, like as a hetero woman. Like I was just like, and obviously that wasn't his role, but I was just like, wow, and up until he freaking did what he did. I mean, it's like, pay it forward. Like I liked Kevin Spacey.
Brilliant actor.
I liked him. I mean, I watched Seven and was like, wow.
Usual Suspects.
So, but I think at the time that Matt Damon was coming up as an actor, I think that people were still not just throwing themselves out there as I'm gay. Like who's the dude that was in oh gosh, I'm horrible. He played in the movie with the guy who plays the Hulk in Marvel, and they were a gay couple. But he's gorgeous. He actually is gay. Oh my gosh. Sissy, I know you know who I'm talking about. But at any rate, he is a gay actor. He's gay in real life, and he plays a character. He doesn't have to play a gay character because he's gay. He can be straight, and in some of his movies, he is straight. Oh my gosh, this is gonna drive me crazy. I'm gonna look it up later. Harmony, where are you? So
I'm sure she's on it. I can hear her keys going.
But I think at that time there was still a very big line to cross in terms of being gay and letting that be known.
I agree, and I would say at that time too, the revolution hadn't started yet. I feel like we were on the precipice of it around Good Will Hunting, but it was still another several years before people were like, yep, I'm out. You're not going to play me as a token or a caricature. And, that's still something that gay actors are having to endure now.
Right.
We still, listen, we have heterosexual, cisgendered actors playing trans characters. There's no reason for that. You mean to tell me in all of the planet Earth you can't find a trans actor? You don't want to find a trans actor.
Right.
But at that time, it was different. And I think at that time, coming out of the closet at the wrong time, listen, they were still dealing with the whole what happened to Ellen at that point. I don't think she had been back yet. And if she had been, it wasn't that long. So that's just my take on it. I don't know. But the other thing, getting back to Cuomo, because I'm still mad about this guy. I actually think that he needs to be kidnapped and deported somewhere. But
Nobody else will take him. They're like, nah, that's yours.
probably not. But the other thing that really gets me and that pisses me off is his whole, did you see? I don't know if you watched the press conference. But
no, I didn't.
Okay. You have to watch it because you got to check out his demeanor. You know, I kiss everybody. I kiss the lesbians and the transgendered. I kiss the black people. I kiss the women. I kiss the children.
The blacks.
I
love
kiss
that.
the blacks.
The blacks.
I kiss all the peoples. Okay. So, because you're a pervy creep, it's okay because you kiss everybody. Sorry, it doesn't stand up for me. And what's worse about it, haven't we had Me Too and all these other things? That's your defense? I kiss everybody. Well, you also had a culture of retaliation.
Mm-hmm.
So you knew it was wrong, because if it wasn't wrong, why would you need to retaliate?
Right. And you had a culture of retaliation, and it's so accepted. There are so many things that are just so accepted. And so you say, you know, like, he has this woman working next to him. She was complicit. What comes to mind is what you sent me, and she was complicit, and my guess is she was probably a victim at some point.
Right.
And then she became complicit, and she then became an instructional tutor of what not to say.
Yep.
And and that's a role that women begin to take on, and they do. They begin to take it on because of they have power. It's a feeling of power, and it is. It's a feeling of power standing next to someone who is powerful. And it is also, in a weird, crazy, you know, train spotting, A Clockwork Orange way. It's a space of safety.
Oh, sure. 100%.
Because if I can, you know, deflect, then he can go over here and do his stuff. And
so then,
you know,
like Nexium, right? So
right.
You've got, you know, that actress woman serving the cult leader guy women and branding them and being a whole part of it.
Right.
Because, hey, you know, well, actually, I think she was really
Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend, or whatever, whatever she was.
The right thing to do is he should resign. Absolutely. And he shouldn't fight it. But he's already said he's going to fight it.
But why? Because everybody gets to, every state is broke because all of the politicians get to quietly slip away and still retain their pension.
Well, I mean, listen, so impeach him, convict him of a crime, and let him lose it. But I believe, I don't know what it is in New York. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone out there knows. But you can resign and still be impeached because that is a legal, whatever it's called. Yes, Bikram for sure. Who said that? Pilates with Kat said Bikram yoga was the same thing. That was actually worse, in my opinion, for 10,000 reasons, which we can talk about in a minute. Hi, Paul. I got your message. I just haven't had time to say hi. Al Franken had to go for a lot less.
Yeah.
Something that was, in my opinion, unreasonable. But that's what you have on the left, is these purity tests to nowhere.
Right.
And meanwhile, and this is what really chaps my ass about this whole thing. This whole thing took, 6 months or less to come about, for them to come down with a definitive conclusion and move along. In the meantime, Matt Gaetz and his slippery peen are still out there. He's living his best life. He is wreaking havoc on America and quite possibly the world. And
This only took 6 months? How does that happen? You tell me. They've been investigating Gates for over a year.
Yeah.
How does that
It's what they choose to highlight. I mean, it's like there's a running list of offenders. It's like there's a running list of offenders, and it's like the doomsday clock, right? Like sometimes we're 2 minutes before, sometimes we're a minute after, right? Or a minute before. It's like someone has a big yellow highlighter and they're like, soup du jour. And they just start highlighting the people that they're going to. And then, but no one ever gets highlighted at the same time. And it's like, what we are seeing, however it manifests, what we are seeing is people realizing that, I'm going to throw a dart, took months, 2 months, 3 months for them to come up with an infrastructure plan. Really? We have been at a level or a grade D and F for the majority of our bridges for over 20 years.
Correct.
We are just now getting around to infrastructure. We're like the only country on planet Earth that doesn't have a bullet train.
I mean, you have to run it across a bridge in some places. You don't want a bullet train on a bridge, not in the United States.
And so you know what? So see, I think he is that. I think he absolutely, I think it is that, yeah, he says he's a closet queen and it makes him seem macho. It's that overt, Italian macho thing. It's like, boo, you're not Al. Okay. This is not the Godfather. Just sit your butt down. But it is that sort of overt machismo that, like, I have to show you that I'm a man. I have to show you that I put my man suit on today. Got my man suit on. My hetero man suit today.
Put that away.
But no, I mean, it's like people are starting to realize it's like this is really all going to hell in a handbasket. And so Illinois just went back to we have mask mandates for school and government buildings. And people are like, oh, we didn't get the chocolate milk. No, you didn't get the chocolate milk. You didn't get the chocolate milk because you didn't even get the milk. Put your damn mask on. Put your mask on. You can't say you don't want to wear a mask. You can't say you don't want to get vaccinated. Back to that, let's make a choice for everyone. Let's make a choice for everyone. It's not about forcing you to do something that you don't want to do. It's not about it's not about that. It's about taking a step back and saying, like, oh my gosh, there's a whole bunch of people who are not going to make this. And I still wear my mask. I'm vaccinated. I still wear my mask. Why do I still wear my mask? Because apparently the people who are vaccinated, they're the ones spreading the variant.
Well, and let me just jump back to Brian's point about Gates real quick. There's more than one defendant. The other guy is supposed to be flipping on Gates. No, actually, he's supposedly already flipped on Gates and has given them a shit ton of incriminating information. Where is it? Hi, Desiree, do you know where the information is on Matt Gates? Because I don't know where it is, but we certainly have all Cuomo.
No, it's like a doctoral, right? It's like a doctoral degree. They've got to see what they have and to see who else may be implicated so that they can actually, is there someone else we can get in this? Can we leverage something else? Is there something bigger than this? And so
one of the biggest harmers of public health is running amok. So while you're building your case of bullshit, you can always pursue these people later, by the way. While you're doing that, this man is causing harm, though I gotta say, I love it that he's being heckled everywhere he goes. But at the same time, he's still causing harm, wreaking havoc, and that's gotta have value. Of course, I don't know. DeSantis is my governor. You're lucky you guys have You are lucky you still are.
She's like, news. I know nothing. She's like, it's all one big void. So it's again, it's accountability, and it's someone deciding to make a choice, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's going to potentially have an effect on them. It's someone making a choice, and it's someone making a choice, the right choice, even if it doesn't feel good. And no one wants to make the right choice because we're in an oligarchy, and everybody just wants to grab power and see where and how they can wield it.
Well, and how many people, still on Cuomo, of course, how many people in that situation, how many of those women who saw it and chose not to acknowledge it, how many
Right.
would call themselves feminists? How many of
Right.
them say, I am pro-woman, hear me roar, I'm a feminist, I burned my bra in the 80s, like all this was super great, I am all about women, but I'm not going to report this because this could have an adverse effect on my career.
Yes.
Or somebody
And
me funny, whatever it is.
and it stays there, right? It stays there. And so we go over to the Olympics, and we go over to the Olympics where people are just like, no, I don't want to walk around with my ass cheeks out. I don't want to wear a unitard, or leotard. I want to wear what I want to wear that's going to make me feel comfortable to get to this hard ass routine, because I am one of the best because I made it to the Olympics. See, there. If you make it to the Olympics, you are best of the best. That is just what it is, right? And I don't want to have to worry about taping the leotard to my butt so that it doesn't come off. I just want to wear this unitard. I'm going to wear this unitard, and I'm going to, it's not going to keep you from seeing anything, or it's taking a stand together. Hey, Kevin, it's taking a stand together. And when you take the stand together, you have more power.
Right.
You have more power.
And, getting back to this whole responsibility part, right? So they say, we don't say it because we are way smarter than that. But, they say, women, you shouldn't dress in a way that can be construed as scandalous, devious, or overly promiscuous. And yet we tell our female athletes, you may only perform in napkins, that you have to actually spray glue to your ass or to your boobs or whatever it is, because that's the only way that we're going to allow you to compete.
They did vilify Simone Biles, Sissy,
for everything,
and they vilified her because she said, I represent myself first.
100%.
As long as she was, running like a dog sled and getting golds and doing all of that, she was a representative of the United States first. And she took a stand and said, no, I represent myself. And I'm so amazeball proud of her. And then she came back. And then of course, as if on cue, all of these white men have something to say. And you're just like, sit down, stay in your lane. Why didn't you have something to say when they couldn't follow the protocol for scoring her?
No, they lost their right. Let's see, here I go again. I'm all excited. They lost their right to demand anything of Simone Biles when they left her to be preyed upon by Larry Nassar.
Let's just go back there.
End of sentence. They knew, you can't make me believe for 12.2 seconds that USA Gymnastics and the Carollis did not know what was happening to those athletes. USA Gymnastics knew what those girls ate, drank, what time they went to bed. They knew everything about them, every single thing. So you're not going to tell me that they didn't know. And now you think you have the right to tell this woman, who is a woman, by the way, 24 years old. She is a grown-ass woman. You think you have the right to say to her that she is misrepresenting the United States of America for doing what's right for her body? You didn't give a shit about her body when Nassar was there. So you shut up.
The level of grossness that is that man and the egregious, disgusting way that he was allowed to prey upon young women.
Yeah.
Fish in a barrel.
Just take your pick. It was a smorgasbord.
And and again, my hats off to every single one of them, because they would endure that and then go compete.
Could you imagine having the mettle to have to deal with that? And if you guys aren't following Michaela Moroney on Instagram, she is spilling all of it. And it is hard to read.
Oh,
Really
that was a
hard to read.
hard read.
It just makes you just want to throw up in your throat. But I will tell you, especially if you're parents of children, period, but if you're parents of children who are on that elite athlete train, you have got to read this and put her story, because it's mirrored by 500 other gymnasts
Right.
that we know of. You have to read that story and understand that. I mean, we know about Larry Nassar. We don't know about some of these other people who are doing this on a smaller scale.
Right.
You as parents really have to educate yourself to the fact that this does happen. It happens more regularly than you think. But for these athletes to be able to have him lecturing, it's not a word, over them the night before, and then for them to go out, they said these athletes need to gut up, and pressure is privilege. So said Novak Djokovic. He seems to have forgotten that, but I digress. For them to be able to compartmentalize that and still go out and win, you are talking about some of the most powerful minds out there. And so, again, when they say they need to stop, they need to take a break, whatever it is, we don't get to, as spectators who really have nothing on the line other than, I don't know, couch sores from watching this stuff all day.
And
we don't get
oh my gosh,
opinion.
I just imagine her like calling her really cute boyfriend, because they're so cute together. I just imagine her calling him and him just being like, baby, sit your ass down. Take 5.
No twisties for you.
No, just sit
twisties
down.
You get her for your hair.
Go get you some popcorn. You turn on your movie. I'm going to watch the same movie. We could FaceTime. Go sit yourself down.
Order some sushi. It's good.
It's what happened to being the best. Also, what happened to the mental fortitude that is necessary for you to be at this level, for you to perform at this level, for you to have that focus and concentration. Why would that not also apply to when you need to sit down?
Because, as I've said before, in the United States, all we value is output. All we value is what people do for us. We could give a shit about what people need to do for themselves, want to do for themselves. It doesn't matter.
Correct.
That is why our society is circling the drain, because we
Correct.
don't care enough to say, you know what, sitting down is what you need to do. Kevin, 1,000%.
100,000%.
The entire IOC needs to be blown up, period. For sure. I think the Olympics needs to take like a 10-year hiatus. They need to go and sit on top of the mountain. They need to channel the elders. Like, the Olympics needs to be figured out, from what it does to the athletes to what it does to the host cities. Across the board, the only people that benefit are the IOC. And it's a problem.
Right. And then what was that with the Dins who were caught cheating in their cycling with their shin tape and their vest? And it was a cheat. Oh, yeah. So in their qualifying race, and if I'm saying this wrong, people can jump in if you know what I'm talking about. Denmark wore shin tape and these vests that created, it made them more aerodynamic.
Their butt cheeks weren't hanging out.
And so it wasn't like one guy with shin tape. It was like they all had the same shin tape. and the way that it was placed apparently has something to do with the physics of the bike and them and moving forward and created, like they all had the same line of shin tape, but then they had these under vests that literally streamlined them even more. And so the Brits were like, no, and they were given a warning. Even though the committee said this is against the rules. They were given a warning, but it was their qualifier race. And it was the race that
the warning should be, you don't get to ride your bike, go home.
And that's the thing. And it's like, you're watching it and you're just like, I am not watching much of the Olympics this year. It's really disheartening.
Yeah.
I think there have been some great performances. I think I'm calling them performances or great, you know what I'm saying, competitions. There we go.
What about the two folks that decided they wanted the gold medal together?
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
That's sportsmanship.
Yes. And I mean, there have just been some really incredible moments, as there will always be. What is it? The woman from Australia who basically had no sponsor. They pulled the money from her to give it to a male competitor. And she raised her own money. She crowdfunded and she got there. And it's like, why do we not see what's right in front of our faces? Why do we continue to say, and so again, Misty and I spoke about this last year, is all of this just a trend, right? This whole equity thing, is this all just a trend? Because there are still huge disparities in the differences between what male and female athletes get.
Oh, yeah, the NCAA, did you hear about that?
Oh gosh, no.
So it came out that they were intentionally underfunding, intentionally undervaluing women's sports, which, I mean, we all knew, but finally somebody called it out because that's what it takes, right? Now what happens next? Because we've just allowed, well, we haven't done anything, but they have just allowed male athletes, well, any athletes, but we know it's men because men play stupid ball and other sports. They can now capitalize as amateurs on the work that they do. They can get sponsorships and all of these other things. What happens to women's sports? Well, if you're intentionally under promoting and under resourcing and underfunding women's sports, then you are denying women the opportunity to do the same.
That's discrimination.
100%. So equity, again, is this just an exercise in having an exercise?
In futility?
Clapping? You know, I'm not sure. I do think that there's a huge fad element that is, to be honest, waning. Let's look at where we are this year versus last year. Last year, everyone was down with some sort of cause or another. There was a lot of fist waving, you know, solidarity no matter what. Mm-hmm. Now we've got a bunch of people who maybe they care.
Right.
But they're certainly not caring in the big way that they used to. And is that because they're tired? Well, if you're truly an ally, can you really get tired? Because the people you're aligning with don't get a chance to take a nap. They don't get to be like, woo, I'm really tired of being gay today. I'm just going to lay down and, you know, hopefully tomorrow's going to be a better day. I'm really tired of this wheelchair today, so I'm just going to toss myself on the ground and hope somebody comes pick me up. You don't get to do that.
I'm really tired of this wheelchair.
Whatever it is, you know.
It's just so cumbersome.
Everyone had a cause last year. This year, and I understand in that for some people, so I just want to clarify. This has been a really, really, really hard year and a half for a lot of people. A lot of people have experienced a lot of loss. So I want to be very honest about the fact that some people are just staying alive. So maybe those people can't always be in the middle of the fight. because they don't know when their next meal is coming, or if they're going to be out of bed, able to get out of bed because of depression, whatever it is. That is important too. And that's why others need to be able to put themselves out there. Give each other a break so you can recharge, reflect, and get out there and start kicking ass again.
But in terms of solidarity, when I was reading Michaela's, like I read that after, so I was fasting today. And so like I just finished teaching and I read it and I was like, wait.
Did you go and eat chips? Because that's what I did when I read it.
I didn't. I went and I picked collards from my garden and I made sauteed collards and red onion. So, but it was that thing. She did say something and people told her to stop.
They told her to shut the F up, actually.
Well, okay, yes. And it was like, that's chattel, right? You are basically prostituting these girls. They're being trained and they're being corralled. And there is no place that my 15-year-old is going without me. This whole thing, parents aren't allowed. I'm going to need you to increase that budget, because if you have my kid, if my kid has value to you, because I know my kid is valuable to me, my kid is valuable to themselves. My kids are valued to themselves. But they're not doing that. They're not going anywhere with just a bunch of adults.
And you're paying $20,000, $30,000 a year for them to be isolated from you and abused.
And abused. And abused.
And
and for the abuse to be coveted, quieted, secreted, and ongoing.
There's a new book out about the experience, the abuse that Nadia Comaneci experienced at the hands of the Carolis. If it's not out yet, it's coming out very, very soon. And I think that, and we said this a little bit last week, but I'm going to reiterate it because it's important. From the kids' eye, this is their goal. This is their dream. Whether it's truly their dream or not, in a lot of cases, they've already compartmentalized that out of their stream of thinking. But this is their goal and their dream to be successful. And then on top of it, not all of these kids come from means. So these kids are seeing the sacrifices, the struggles that their children have made to be at the top of, that their parents have made so that they could be at the top of their sport.
Yes.
The kids are in an untenable position and they can't speak out.
Mm-hmm.
They can't. The people that are positioned higher than your parents and your grandparents and probably
yes.
are with God.
Yes.
Are the ones that are abusing you.
Yes. And look at the vulnerability, right? Look at the ages that we're talking about. Look at the vulnerability and look at the indoctrination from such a young age. How do you know anything else?
You don't. You can't, because you haven't had a chance to live life. You haven't been in school probably since the first or second grade.
Right.
You've been homeschooled, private schooled. A lot of the gyms actually have educators that come in and do
right.
homeschooling with the kids. Your parents essentially sign you away.
Right. And I guess I think the thing that's also very sad too is it's probably something that they started off loving and having a great desire for, and even that becomes tainted.
Right. Well,
because that association, right? That association with that thing that encompassed so much of your life, all of that gets just kind of thrown into the bucket.
Right. There was a story in The Cut about one of the women who spoke out against Nasser. She was featured in the documentary about him and the whole situation. But she said, we don't watch gymnastics in my house. She said, I cannot stand to watch gymnastics. And when my kids talk about it, I have to redirect. I mean, that is a lifelong scar. You can get therapy for that stuff forever, but it's always going to be there. Gardening is way better than watching the Olympics.
Well, and the thing that sucks, right, is to me, it's such a beautiful sport. I mean, it's such a, it's a continuous, sustained level of power and agility. That is one of the things that I have always loved about gymnastics is it's not a one and done, right? And it's not to say that, you know, okay, let me give you an example, right? Like, so shot put, and this is based on my zero lack of knowledge of, you know, anything track and field other than that people run, people jump over a big bar, right? So they throw a big heavy ball, and then maybe they throw it again. What is it, 2 out of 3 or whatever it is, right? But when you're performing a gymnastics routine, it's a sustained level of agility and skill. And again, I am not saying that other athletes don't require the same level of skill.
Yeah, but no one's looking at the shot putter and saying, oh, you know, he doesn't really look like he's in the game. You know, his facial expression is not expressive enough as he throws the ball.
Right.
You know, in gymnastics, you have to be the total package. Same with ice skating. Same with synchronized.
Right. Yes.
Trampolining.
And yes. And those are sustained, you know, you have to be out there and continue, right? If you land out of your ice skating jump, you've got to, poorly, you've got to recover because your routine may not be finished. You still have more choreography. So whatever you're feeling after you landed that jump and splatted on your butt and spun around and jumped yourself back up, you have to keep going.
And then you have to decide, oh crap, that was a critical element that I bailed on. Can I sham it in later in my routine? You know, we talked about her last week, Surya Bonali.
Right, right.
She would, I mean, what did my mom call her? Like Bumbles Bonali or something like that. That broad would fall down all the time. But she would fall down at her first 5 jumps. In the last 30 seconds of her routine, she would add 7 more jumps and a backflip. And everyone would be like this. And they would say, well, she's an athletic skater. She doesn't really have the artistic ability. Like, really? Come on.
And it's like, but okay, so then that goes back to standard, right? What is the standard? The standard is based on this white mannequin mold. And I'm sorry, Desiree mentioned, why did her name just flop out of my head? Desiree mentioned the woman who ran Alice. But there was another woman. There was another woman who just ran, and she's 5 months pregnant.
Listen,
and she's it's like these are all Black women. They're like, oh no, I'm gonna have this baby, but it's not gonna stop me from right. I'm not taking a year off. They're like, I'm gonna have this baby, and I'm gonna have this baby, and then I'm gonna start training again 3 weeks later.
I was running to the bathroom at 5 months pregnant. There was no running in my life. It still isn't, by the way.
Well, this woman who, oh my gosh, I cannot remember her name, but her uterus isn't going anywhere. Like, she doesn't, her uterus isn't even growing, let alone the fact that it has to shrink after she gives birth. It's like, she's going to give birth and her uterus is going to be like, okay, yeah, we're good. And it's all of those things. And again, here's this high level, this high level of competition, this high level of focus and training. And these chicks are doing it pregnant. Not like, oh, I just found out I was pregnant. Thank God the Olympics are 2 weeks away. No, they're like, oh, I'm due next month, but it's okay. That's next month. This, I can get to Tokyo and back.
But here's my question, though. Is that a part of something that you and I rail against, which is because generally speaking, it's the Black athletes that are doing this. Is this a matter of we don't get to take a break. We don't get to rest. We don't get to have sandwiches. All we get to do is perform, or we have no value. Are we afraid of letting down our tribe, our neighborhood, the people that we met on the street each day, whatever? Because I don't know granted, the doctor will typically say, within your tolerance, do what you can handle. I don't necessarily know that he meant sprinting the 200-meter hurdles.
I think it's part of that. I definitely think that is a part of it. And, I don't think the average athlete wants the downtime. And, we hear about people talking about their ages in terms of when the next Olympics will come around. We hear about all types of athletes. Well, actually, predominantly female athletes.
Of course.
Take it back. We hear predominantly about female athletes being able to qualify because by the time the next Olympics comes around, they're 4 years older.
Right.
Keeping up that level of focus and training for 4 additional years if you don't qualify. But I also think that there is, I also think that there is a thing where oftentimes white women are coddled during their pregnancies. And, a lot of Black women, they're like, take Olympics out of it. You just got to get up and go to work. You got to get up and you got to go to work and you got to keep going and you got to keep going. So I do think that there is a part of it, but I also just think that, there's this view of pregnancy that it's this thing you're supposed to stop your life for 9 months because you're fragile and you're willowy and you have this baby that you're growing, which is a way that men like to see women. I think there's a level of sexism in it.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, so there's reasonable, and then there's, listen, you're running at Mach 4 and you trip and fall on you're not falling backwards in track and field. You're usually running and falling forward.
Sure.
It's an extreme risk, to be honest. And on top of it, I don't care how much balance training you do, you're still off balance. When you are pregnant, your balance center shifts, and that's something that you have to negotiate.
I'm trying to think if I experienced that. Definitely my first pregnancy, I wasn't dancing, but I was dancing, but I wasn't performing, and I was rehearsal directing. And so I was moving all the time. And I actually probably felt like that's when I was running the most when I was pregnant. I wasn't doing 200-meter dashes, but it was something that felt good to my body up until like 7 months. And it was just something that I could do. I did it with my first, I couldn't do it with my second, but I was always working out, but I always felt like I knew where my center was. I didn't feel necessarily off balance. I think it's just a very personal thing. And I think that there are some women where that just works for them. But it didn't seem out of place to me or out of character because I also saw professional dancers dancing right up until they gave birth. Now, they may not have been performing.
That's the difference.
For obvious reasons.
Right.
But I did see them dancing and rehearsing for not just taking company class, but being involved in full on rehearsal. Obviously they were understudying, but it just staying in that frame of mind, staying in that world. So it doesn't seem extreme to me because I think that there are so many things that I love I love people challenging themselves to see what they are capable of doing.
Right.
And I think that they are smart and intelligent women who would not, I don't know if this sounds ridiculous to say, but they would not put their babies at risk. They would not put their babies at risk, but they don't feel like that's a risk because it's something that they are so used to.
Or they don't feel like it's a risk because it's something that they're so used to, but they don't recognize what the risk is. Because that's the other thing. Again,
you always got to play devil's advocate. You always got to play devil's advocate.
8 months pregnant, somebody comes in your Pilates studio 8 months pregnant, you're going to give them a workout.
Not if I've never seen them before.
You're going to give them an ass buster workout. You're not going to do it. And that's because there's risks associated with it. Listen, I say kudos to anybody that wants to run at any time. As you know, my rule is run when chased, and I've revised it because if I'm running when being chased and I have to fight somebody, I'm going to be too tired to fight them. So I'm no longer running when chased even then. So I'm not doing it, but I still think that, I think there's a reasonable level of risk, and then there's an unreasonable level of risk. Listen, I got hurt playing with my Oculus Quest the other day, so I need to be, I'm a little bit more delicate than others, and I fell into the fireplace head first. So there's that. So I wouldn't really be running any hurdles or jumping because I would trip over the starting blocks before the guy shot the gun and I would be maimed. Pregnant, not pregnant, it doesn't matter. It's not my thing. Jenna says, I could barely walk a straight line. The white volleyball player for USA was pregnant at the Olympics a few years back. Can you imagine nose diving to hit a ball? No, I cannot. I can't imagine nose diving to hit a ball not pregnant. You know why? Because I don't want sand in my britches. No.
Well, you wouldn't have had sand in your britches because your britches were halfway up your cheeks.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yes. Jenna was, for those of you who don't know Jenna, you definitely didn't know her when she was pregnant, she was enormous. I'm just saying, the moon was like, hey, I'm here. Can I circle?
Misty.
It's true. Listen.
Oh, she's like, I couldn't walk. I couldn't breathe. Jenna, how much did your baby weigh?
And you had more than one. Like, I gained 18 pounds. I was like, enough. Yes. Steroids, fluffy.
I never like to tell people my birth story because it was so uneventful. I barely gained weight, and my babies were 6 pounds 13 ounces and 6 pounds 14 ounces.
Harrison was 6'13". He was so cute. He had a giant head.
Aries had a giant head, and he finally grew into it. Like, it's just been a couple of years that it's like, oh, okay, this looks a little more even.
Same. Thank goodness Harrison has a ton of hair too, because it's like a lot of head.
Ooh, but Aries was bald.
Oh no, Harrison was born with a ton of hair and then it fell out and it came back curly.
Oh wow.
50 pounds. Oh man, I couldn't imagine. Yes. But alas.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. She had to do the roids. Okay, so it wasn't just like she had something helping her gain weight.
Yeah.
So
and listen, pregnancy is such an individual thing, one person's, I'm so tired, I can't do anything. Oh, wait, you've only been pregnant for 2 minutes, is another person's, oh, crap, I'm in labor. Oh, it's already been 9 months. So, granted, I do accept that. But I also, again, I look at, again, we have these dreams, right? And then we have these time limits. And as women, there's always somebody reminding us that the clock is ticking. Nobody ever says this to men. I haven't heard anybody say, oh, Kevin Durant, you're getting older. Oh, sorry, you might not be able to throw that ball for much longer. No, it doesn't happen. But for women, for every sport, oh, she's getting older. She might not be able to swim. She might not be able to write her name very well. She's going to have to write it.
They also like to do that thing where they're like, oh, this, like they'll be like, oh, this person is 10 years her junior. And it's like, okay, but yeah. I wanted to comment on what Desiree said about when Allison Felix tried to negotiate with Nike. So it's the Felix effect. We'll call it the Felix effect. She made a request based on what she needed for her.
Very reasonable request.
And they said no. So it is that push that, oh, you're a Black woman. You can stand with the world on your shoulders and still keep it moving and still feed your baby and a bunch of other babies and still make food and still clean the laundry. And so it was this idea that they forced her to make a choice that for obvious reasons no man would ever have to make. And here's the conundrum, right? Because they were so supportive to Colin Kaepernick.
Well, did she happen before Colin Kaepernick? Because I feel like the black eye that they got, Nike did a bunch of bad things in a row. And then I think they maybe had an organizational shakeup, and they've since gotten their head out of their butt cheeks. But, again, when we have these cultural shifts, that opens the door for
Right.
things like this to happen. And, somebody said to me once, I don't understand why you would applaud that company. They're only doing it because that's where their audience is. That's how they're going to make money. My point of view is I don't give a damn, because even though I may know that and you may know that, other people might not even put that together. And what they see is a corporation stepping up. Now, I don't want it to be pandering like
Right.
Coca-Cola and Delta Airlines, who were like, oh yeah, Georgia, we're going to pay you this money, pay your politicians this money, put it against this election, this voting rights initiative. Oh yeah, we've decided after we've given our money that it's totally terrible. We should never have gone that way. No, you don't get cookies for that. You knew what you were doing because you can read.
Right.
You've been in the South for a long time. You've greased hands with Kemp and all of the rest of the bottom feeders.
Right.
That is a decision that you made intentionally and then thought you could back out of it. No, you're not getting my money, bitches.
And again, this is all supported by people who buy things and contribute, even if it's 1 6-pack at a time, even if it's 1 can at a time.
What is your accountability as a consumer?
Right. And everyone thinks that, oh, it's just this 1 6-pack. It's not just that 1 6-pack. I mean, you have to think about just how much Coca-Cola you buy. If you buy Coca-Cola, I always see it at the grocery store. We don't buy soda. But there's so much. It's there for a reason. It keeps getting replenished and restocked. So somebody's buying it. A whole lot of somebodies are buying it. And that's where your money is going. Your money is supporting that. Your money is supporting them to then funnel their money into bad politics. And you can be as liberal or as libertarian or as democratic or as whatever your thing is.
You can even be a pescatarian.
But you are supporting it because every piece counts. Coca-Cola can only be what it is in terms of the conglomerate that it is because people buy it.
100%. Amazon too, all of them. And the more dependent upon them we are, the more power and influence and control they have over us.
And we think that one person doesn't matter, but it does. One person matters. One person matters. And, with certain types of foods, what you also have to consider is where you spend your money on food, you are affecting legislation in a negative way because this country especially does not believe that we should eat well. It just does not believe it.
Nope.
And so
we're not all entitled
correct.
to quality food.
Correct. And so every time you buy that, whatever it is, and you should, I do talk about this ever so often because I think it's important. And I think we manage to do it in my household. Like there's just certain brands that I don't buy from Conagra Foods. I don't buy from Kraft. And the reason being is because they are affecting legislation about our food,
right?
About what they think, because they have all of these chemically processed foods, they are affecting how we are able to access not just good food, but affordable good food.
Well, and this is how we get into these pickles of distrust, mistrust that end up with, results like what we're seeing with the vax situation. I mean, let's be honest. What you just said about heavily chemically laden food, and ConAgra and Monsanto and all of those people. A couple months ago, it was right after the election, actually, there was this whole big hullabaloo about how Joe Biden was getting rid of beef. Like, beef was going to be canceled. He had already implemented a strategy to remove all the dairy farms. It was even already happening in Pennsylvania. Getting rid of the beef. There's just no more beef. We're all going to be eating either genetically modified beef or Impossible Burgers.
Ugh.
Because it's the liberal agenda. And I don't think anyone would be able to make headway with nonsense like that if we didn't have the BS from Monsanto, from ConAgra, from the big
Correct.
food lobbies that manages to push legislation that everybody knows is harmful.
Correct.
They've got the power. So, I don't know, by that point I'd been iced out, Jenna. It wasn't, Janice couldn't, I don't know what she thought about that. But, that's why you have to, like Sissy says, you have to know where your food comes from. You have to know,
right,
if you're supporting a company, doesn't it make sense to know not just what's in the food, but what is behind the food? If a company is mistreating its workers, do you think those workers are taking the extra precautions to do the right things? Hand washing, simple stuff like that. I mean, because listen, people can be pretty shitty. You know what happens if you complain at the restaurant too many times. You just don't eat that food.
But it's not even just that they would slack in that way. Some of the meat processing plants, which we saw during the first height of COVID, because apparently we're now the second height of COVID.
Oh, we're not even.
But during the first height, and they were talking about meat processing plants, and they were talking about the deplorable conditions. They're not in a position to take the precautions that they're supposed to. The way that they want the processing to go is well above. Everything is happening too fast, and the acceptable amount of taint that can be in meat. It doesn't matter if they wash their hands. Like, it doesn't matter, and so the circumstance.
We're talking about meat, but same thing happens in plant-based, factory farming situations as well.
Yes.
Yes. So don't think, oh, those suckers that eat chicken, I'm better because I'm eating grass. Well, guess what? Your grass is processed, packaged, all of that stuff too, and safety measures still need to be adhered to. And I think in a lot of cases they aren't. Well, we know.
No, because we're in such a hurry to throw away 40% of our food supply. We got to get it out. We got to get it out. We got to get it out so we can throw it out. And that, that's the thing. I don't need to eat strawberries in December. I live in the Midwest. It's all of these things that as a consumer, we put our foot down, so if you've ever gone to a restaurant, and if you've gone to a true farm to table restaurant, farm to table is not just having a bunch of green stuff on your table. It's actually supposed to be the food that is grown at that time.
At that time for your climate zone, your area.
Right.
You should not be having fabulous citrus in Pittsburgh in January. I mean,
right.
By January, the sun hasn't been out since October. Like, we're not getting citrus here. But that's the thing. And I do believe that there is a way to do it responsibly.
Yes.
I mean, I definitely think there is, but I don't think that ordering it from a big processor or getting it from, your local grocery store who's getting it from.
Correct.
Who knows, Shamu's farm, whatever, is going to do it. Like Jenna says, I'll look into it. I've been mostly vegetarian for over a year. I mean, one way to get around it is to, your local CSA. A lot of the CSAs produce throughout the winter now. do that rather than buying it from Amazon. I mean, Whole Foods. I mean, whatever they're calling themselves. Because honestly, I mean, if you look at the decline in quality at Whole Foods
Yes.
since Amazon has taken it over, who knows where that stuff's coming from? Who knows how long it's sitting in a warehouse?
And then we have the issue with the topsoil, because that's what factory farming does. It's not just the factory farming of animals. When you don't rotate your crops and when you keep growing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, you deplete the soil of nutrients. So that means if those nutrients do not exist in the soil, then that means the food growing there, the plant growing there, it cannot absorb those nutrients. And so I believe our vegetables are something like, our mass-produced or our mass-grown vegetables are something like 30-40% less nutritious, because the vitamins and minerals are no longer in the soil.
I mean, seriously, you might as well just eat a bag of chips. I mean, chips are
So,
to be honest. I'm not even joking. I mean, I'm kind of joking, but in all honesty, when I first learned that statistic, I was like, oh, I mean, 40%. That's a big number. So
that's a big number.
tell you that supplements aren't worth anything. Well, you have to supplement if you're missing 40% of your nutrients, because there's no way you're going to take that in, no matter how many times you double or triple whatever it is that you're making or eating.
Correct.
You're never going to be able to take that in. But then we look at supplements completely unregulated. You don't really know what you're getting there either, unless
Right.
you're getting those from a place that you've sourced wisely. You know, but again, that comes back, it all comes back to the privilege of being able to take good care of your health.
Yep.
By having the time and the energy and the effort and the resources to properly source your food. And
Correct.
that is something that people overlook because it's not the easy path. I mean, Nikki has a garden, we have a garden. We live in the suburbs. We can do that. People in the city, though, don't recognize we start our garden on top of our washer and dryer. Every, what month is that? February. You know, that's where we started. We have the grow lights going. You can do a lot of this stuff on your own safely. And really, you probably can't do all of it, but you can do a lot of it. We, when we started this, we had one of those arrow gardens, which I highly recommend. We had an arrow garden. We got heirloom seeds, and we were growing lettuce on the washer and dryer. We had good lettuce. We knew where it was coming from. So, and listen, I'm about as city a girl as you can get. Like, I am Jaja from Green Acres. So honestly, I let him do a lot of the work, but I tell him what I want to grow. And the flowers are my deal. The foodstuffs are his, but it can be done. And I have to say, there's a lot of joy that comes out of taking that bit of responsibility.
And I think that people think that there is a skill to gardening, but it's something that you learn as you go.
And there's YouTube.
There's YouTube. Tomatoes, which I don't eat a lot of because of how acidic they are. Tomatoes, if you give them some sun and some water, they will grow.
It's true.
Like you get yourself a paint bucket, tomatoes will grow. Cucumbers, they grow. But I wouldn't start full on with a garden. I wouldn't throw yourself into it. I got a farm boy for a husband.
I grew
up in Alabama.
Arrow garden. Get a couple little puppies. Start with an arrow.
Yeah. And however you do it, it's really kind of cool to go out. We have a bunch of, because we're growing shishito peppers, and we have to start canning. So, but no canning for you? No. Yeah, we're going to pickle. Ooh. So, yeah, we're going to pickle because we have a bunch of different kinds of peppers. Like we've got pepperoncinis, the shishitos I'm really interested in. But they're really kind of easy, and it's really kind of cool to go out and make something. that basically you walked out onto your porch or onto your balcony or plucked out of your windowsill. Herbs are so easy. And it's, you know, and it's again, it's one of those things where you can do this and you can just add on every year. I love heirloom seeds. I did research on heirloom seeds, and as I was researching, and I found out that there used to be 7,000 varieties of apple, and they have been whittled down. And so when you see different things, like one of the cucumbers we're growing is the size of a yellow apple and it's got a sweeter flesh, and I'm really interested in what it tastes like, and then also to pickle it. But there's a whole variety of food out there that most people have never even experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's, if you're tired of just broccoli and green beans and that you find in the produce section, it's like, go grow something, go think of something that you have always wanted to try. Go Google heirloom seeds and look at how many different types of vegetables there really are versus what you are told there are. We are growing a carrot that is called atomic red. It is like this bright, vibrant, and it's like, you started in a little seed thing, and when the little sprouts come up and, they're waving their happy little carrot leaves, you stick them in the ground, dig a hole, stick them in the ground, dig a hole, pour some water in it, put that little seedling in there that you grew, your little starter plant. But you get this whole other different way of experiencing food. Yeah. I would say that with lettuce especially,
there's so many good lettuces out there.
And they taste different. They don't taste like the lettuce that you get at the grocery store. They actually taste different.
Yes.
And or when you buy arugula in the grocery store and then you look at arugula seeds and you realize there's like 5, 6, 7 different types. I love arugula.
That's Glenn's favorite too. Mm-hmm.
But there's just a ton of different vegetables that you can experience. It's just a matter of if you choose to take that step. And it doesn't have to be a big step. And it doesn't, Misty's given me some tips. I've looked some stuff up online. Some of the stuff I was just like, my husband and I were just like, just throw it in there, see what happens. So it's like, we just threw it in there and it happened. Our watermelon is like a mad, crazy vine right now. And I'm like, perhaps I really should have just put one seed in there. Nope. We just threw a couple of seeds in there. And he's like, well, what if they all don't grow? And so, but they all grew. So we have like this mad, crazy, like watermelon vine. But, I think it is about being accountable. I think I challenge you guys all to find something that you can be a little bit more accountable for, that you can say, this is something that I've never thought about. What is my level of responsibility for this or towards this? Because there's a lot of things, that we see and that we, there was a homeless guy, and I always give money to homeless people. And sometimes my husband is looking at me like, what are you doing? And I was like, that's not my job to judge. If they say they need it and I have it, I'm going to give it to them. I'm not going to, So we passed this guy in the grocery store, and he was talking to the woman in the grocery store, and he looked like he was asking for help, not for money. Raccoon?
No, spider.
Okay. And so then when we got out, we got stopped by the light. So we had to look at his, little sign. And I glanced at it and I was like, I'm not going to give him money. And like, okay, this is bad. But I was like, it's a white guy. I'm like, I'm not giving him money. And then I did say that. I'm being honest. And then I looked over and I saw the sign again and it said he had 2 kids. And I was like, damn. And so my husband's watching me. I'm opening up my wallet. And I'm like, damn, the kids rated the singles. And I had $40. I had 2 20s. And he's looking at me. I'm looking at him like, dang, he's got 2 kids. And I'm like, give him the 20. He's looking at me like,
Have you lost your damn mind? Yeah.
I'm like in the 20. It's not mine to judge. It's not mine to say that this person needs it more or this person needs it less. In that moment in time, if I have it, I give it. And so I don't know what he did with it. Hopefully he did what he said he was going to do with it. But it's looking for those spaces where you can take on a little bit more responsibility. You can look and see where maybe you can make a shift or you can make a change. And I don't really think that that's hard in this time because there is a new breed of homeless. This is a new, since this pandemic, this is a new breed of homeless. Like people are getting the rug pulled out from them 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times.
Well, and these moratoriums, who knows how long this new one will last, but it really basically all it's leading to is a path to bankruptcy. And if you recall, the bankruptcy rules were revamped 4 or 5 years ago or something. It's a lot harder to claim bankruptcy anyway. So, I don't necessarily think that they are going to help anybody long term. One.
Correct.
Two, I love the fact that we're helping the people who have lost jobs, but the landlords, coming from me, this is going to be rich because you know how I feel about some certain landlords, but there are some landlords who are also losing big time in these situations, who aren't being made whole. Again, that is a societal failing and a government failing. Granted, can you support people forever? No. But at the same time, there are some people who will have less agility when it comes to finding new work or finding new
Correct.
At the financial bracket that they need to be in. And we are looking at inflation. I paid $3.29 a gallon for mid-grade gas today, which, Speed Racer never gets mid-grade, but she had to deal with it today, only really because I wasn't paying attention. But at the end of the day, $3.29 for gas is kind of stupid. And we know that this is just OPEC playing games. So, look at what we're looking at across the board here. You've got people who can't afford their homes. They can't afford to get to work. So, I think that when we talk about accountability and lending a helping hand, you talk about it in terms of giving money to the homeless guy, and I'm proud of you for giving money to the homeless white guy. Thank you, Nikki. But,
you just got that way, Misty. You just got that way of making people feel a certain kind of way, You look at it.
I'm just saying. I think that, there's all kinds of ways we can do things. There's all kinds of ways that we can help out. And, for some people out there really may not need it. They may be working the system, but others do. And like Nikki said, is it ours to judge? I guess we could decide to give it to somebody else. I think as long as we're helping somebody, as long as we're trying to make the world a better place, then, we're doing the right thing.
If you get a chance, if you have, great. If you get a chance, volunteer at a food depository. If you're able to pack the boxes and you see the sheer amount of food that comes into a depository, they're warehouses. Well, at least they are. Greater Chicago Food Depository. They have warehouses. And they just have people who come in and they volunteer and they pack these boxes. And the food that they have is the food that they have. But they're giant warehouses. And then when you look at that and when you stand in this ginormous place and you pack these boxes and you realize that it's not enough.
You realize that by noon, there's no food left.
Right. When you realize that that's not enough. And this is something that people do 6 days a week, 6, 7 days a week here. And so when you stand in this huge warehouse and they tell you, put some canned goods in there, put some pasta in there, put some fruit in there. When you do that and you realize that it's not enough, and that when you see people in the line who you can sometimes see they are ashamed, you can see that it's the last place they want to be, but it's a necessity. Okay, is there going to be somebody there who lives in a mansion and drives a Beamer or a Mercedes? Sure, because we know that those people exist, but that is not a reason to not do it, right? But when you realize that someone is making the choice because it is their only choice, because you have to think about that. They're making that choice because it is their only choice. And they were already, at that point, they probably don't have any food because they've gone through everything, because it took them a minute to get to the point where they psychologically could make that choice.
Well, it was dire at that point.
Exactly.
The choice was made for them at that point.
Correct. And when you realize how early people line up, how early people line up, because you got to be there, because everybody knows how this goes. They know it's going to run out. So when you realize that sometimes the line starts hours before the place even opens. So you have to think about that, and you have to see. And I have this thing that I say to my family: we're okay, we eat steak. Every time, I can't get the
Pop rocks today, Mom.
I'm like,
worst.
Right. Or how come you can't afford to buy this? I mean, they don't really say stuff like that. They think there's a money tree
You're gonna get
growing directly. Right. It's growing directly out of my armpit. But I'm like, we're okay, we eat steak.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I'm gonna have a steak. So but it's a statement of, well, you know what? It's a statement of privilege. It's not that we don't work. We work, and we have to actually show up for work. We have to show up for work every day. But no, I mean, it is. I was able to take my kids, who keep growing every 30 seconds, took the 2 older boys school clothes shopping. It's a thing.
Right.
It's a thing. And they were so cute. They were like, oh, we can just get, like, we don't have to get this, or we don't, we can just get the, and I was like, are you trying to save my money, or are you trying to save my money so that you can spend it someplace else? Like, you trying to save it for me or for you? So
do we even really need to ask that question? Come on now.
Right. So I look for ways to, where can I be more responsible? Where can I really look and see what and where I am needed, what is needed, and where I can give. And I think that that's important.
And I think too, we're talking about tangible material type of help, but there's a lot of people out there that are having a tough time right now.
Yes.
On that.
Yes.
There are a lot of people with anxiety. All of this kicking back up again, all of this rage that we're seeing in people,
Mm-hmm.
that happens because of, that is a fear response. And a lot
yes, I agree. Yes.
Angry. But generally speaking, there's a fear response based on the fact that we have been in this nebulous situation for a very long time, and there's no clear path to exiting at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the more desperate people get, the more acting out we see. So, in terms of helping out, I think it's really important that we reach out to people in our community, maybe the ones that we just haven't seen as often lately, the ones that we know have had trouble with anxiety or depression or whatever it is in the past. The power of a written note, not a typed note on your texts,
Yes.
actual handwritten note is immense.
Yes.
What that does for somebody's psychological well-being is huge. And even just
Yes.
knocking on the door, they're afraid of germs or whatever, they're not coming to the door. Knocking on the door and putting a note or a package or something on somebody's front stoop is such a big deal when,
Mm-hmm.
you just don't know what's coming next. I am telling you, everyone has been talking about how I think it's 39% the increase in drug overdoses from
Wow.
2019 through now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the number's gonna get any lower just because people can get outside. I really don't. I think it's easy to assume that, but
Mm-hmm.
again, the ambiguity is still there. So
Right.
again, we have the skills and the capabilities, well, some of us do, to reach out and to make sure people know. Listen, I've been having kind of a struggle lately over the past few weeks, and Jenna, who's on the call tonight, she might be gone by now, but she and I just kind of out of nowhere started talking, and it was just so good. Brian and Paul and Sissy, people reach out, and
Mm-hmm.
you just don't understand the power of that and what that has done for me personally. It's just phenomenal. So do it for people in your neighborhood, for
Right.
people that you don't even know. Just, hey, I'm your neighbor, I'm just thinking about you. I mean, you might get shot if you're black, especially, so you might want to send the white neighbor over to do it, but I'm just saying,
Or at least put them
shot,
in
but
front of you.
give a healthy, happy smile and a nod. Those little things really do go far. Somebody said, why would you buy a $4 coffee for the person behind you? If they're in line behind you at Starbucks, they can afford it. Well, it's not about that, asshole. What it's really about is the fact that somebody sometimes needs to know that they're doing a good thing, and somebody else needs to know that they've been recognized.
And I don't, smiling at someone and asking them how they're doing, everyone is in a bit of turmoil, right? In varying degrees of turmoil, right? Asking someone how they're doing or smiling at them, just nodding. You don't know where that person is that day. That might have been the thing that kept them from jumping off the ledge. That might have been the thing that kept them from going home
and taking fentanyl,
or not being able to control how they respond to their child. And so, or that may be the thing that everyone is precariously perched on a precipice, right? Because of everything that's going on. I know. Did you like that? Did you like that?
I liked it.
And so acknowledging someone and giving them a sense of, you belong here. You have value. You are so valuable. I'm going to smile and nod and reiterate your value to you.
You've been seen.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a small act of kindness. It's taking responsibility. It's buying a coffee. None of these things are big deals. None of these things are big deals. And we're not talking about a monetary expense. We're simply just saying, how can we all be more responsible?
Sometimes the most valuable things are free.
Yes.
And you might make
join the collective of your community. Join the collective of your community. Join your community. Be a part of it. Don't just I moved into a neighborhood, and you know, it was really funny because when we moved in, you know, of course people walk by. Our house was the model house for the neighborhood. It sits right on the corner. It's the very first house in the neighborhood, and it's a huge house. So of course people walk by and we're like, oh yeah, they're coming to see the Black people. And I do think that that was part of it.
You people, get off.
But we really take care of our lawn and we did it ourselves. And so people are walking by and they're like, great job. They're like, this house looks so much better. And we're like,
Clap.
they're like, you know, they come and they stand, hi, I'm so and so. And, you know, of course, my husband's looking at me like, what were their names? I'm like, dude, I don't know. So, but we're horrible. Hey, people would drive by, they're honking at us. Hey. So, but we had to, I said, you know, we actually have to be a part of the neighborhood. You know, we don't have to like do the deep dive. It's like, but we do talk to our neighbors. We do, you know, hey, how you doing? Oh yeah, we got a new mailman, old mailman retired. Did you get your mail today? You know, but we have to insert ourselves into the community because we inserted ourselves into the community. We can't pretend like we didn't.
Well, that's it. You know, people say, oh, you know, nobody knows their neighbors anymore. Well, how much effort did you put into getting to know your neighbors?
Yes.
You have a new family that's about to move in. Glenn has already met them. He's gotten all of their deets. He knows what cars they drive. He knows what color they're painting their bathroom. I'm like, dude, how do you have time for all that? I mean, I just asked you to take the trash out. You couldn't do that, but you've got all their information. But, you know, he's like the goodwill ambassador. I do it here. He does it in person because it's so important. You know,
It is.
if something goes
It is.
wrong, your next door neighbor may save your life. And
Yes.
they think you're a tool, they might not bother. You know, it sounds silly, but if you don't make relationships, you don't have relationships. And like Sissy says,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal to you, but it could just save a life.
Yes. Absolutely.
Is 100% the truth. And if anybody
Yep.
has lost anyone to something terrible like suicide, you know, the thing that you always find yourself doing is, you know, going through your mind, what could you have done better?
Correct.
How could you have been a better advocate? You know, those are just the things that you just process over and over again. The little things are what matter. The continued drips rather than the fire hose, you know.
Yep.
It's a completely different situation. So, guys, I feel like that is a great place for us to end. We hope that you'll come play with us again next week, of course, but we also hope that you can find something in your life to just say, you know what, I'm going to do this one little thing. Because that one little thing will be rewarding enough to you and your soul that you're going to do something else.
Right.
And then it multiplies exponentially.
Yeah, for sure. And it also gives back to you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Then everybody wins. And we could all use some wins right now, right?
Oh, yes.
Celebrate the wins. Ciao, Jenna. Ciao, everyone. Guys, again, thank you for making this a fabulous Thursday night. I love Thursdays, even though it's getting dark earlier, which is such...
It is. I know. I know it is.
Terrible. Des, you know what? We do what we can. Like, this COVID shit's not a joke. It's real. So, you know, we have to work within our comfort zone. But, you know, there's all kinds of ways to find a way. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for being here tonight. Sarah's great, actually. She's actually a stress coach. She doesn't coach getting stressed. And she's in Chicago, actually, Nikki. You and Sarah meet. And Coach Robin's in Chicago, and Jenna's in Chicago. And why is everybody in Chicago?
Jenna, you're in Chicago? Oh my goodness.
In Chicago too. I told you when I come and visit, when you have my room ready, we're gonna get together with Jenna. And Robin and everybody in Chicago. Like, I feel like we have to do a ThoughtFLOW Chicago edition. But everybody, thank you for being here tonight, and can't wait to see you next week. I feel like there's always so much to talk about, and you guys are always such great participants in the conversation.
Yep.
So we will see you next week at 7 p.m. No.
6 Chicago time.
It's 7 p.m. for people who love to sit out in the dark and hope they don't get attacked by raccoons. 6 p.m. for people for whom it's still light outside. I'm a little bit jealous.
It is. It's barely there, but it is.
Winter's coming. Ugh.
It is.
Have a great night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Good night,
For being part of our
everyone.
community. Good night.